That's our intro song.
Nice.
Hey, guys, welcome back to the Hushlife podcast. I would say weekly Hushlife podcast, but we haven't proven ourselves for me to go down that path, so I'm just going to say Hushlife podcast. As you know, we try to do one of these every week and release them on Wednesday, but that's our commitment anyways moving forward, is try to do it weekly. Okay, I'm going to paint the picture for you guys right now since this is an audio-only podcast. We are sitting around a picnic table, if you will, in the middle of South Dakota at turkey camp. The gentlemen I have on the podcast today, I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but let me give you my introduction of these fellows. These are three of the most down-to-earth and just exceptionally good human beings I've had the pleasure to meet, not only in the hunting industry, but in my life. I'm getting to know these guys better. This is the second year they've invited us out to their turkey camp they've been doing for 20-plus years. But I've had a phenomenal time with these guys. They're just so fun to be around. And I can't think of a better group of people I've spent time in the woods with off the top of my head. So anyway, I'm going to let them introduce themselves. And then we're going to dive into some topics, but not really have any road that we're trying to go down, just kind of shoot the breeze at turkey camp. So, Mr. Ken Byers, let us know what's up. What are you doing, and what are you about?
Yeah, well, my name's Ken Byers. I come from northern lower peninsula of Michigan. Kind of hunted and trapped most of my life. That was kind of my passion as a kid growing up on a 10-acre hobby farm, and was blessed to be able to make a living in the hunting industry. So I started working with the NRA back in 1989. Before that, as a co-op student in high school, I worked for Williams Gun Sight Company for 10 years. That's kind of how I broke into it, and then represented American Hunter and American Rifleman at the NRA, and then started my own business in 2002, representing publications, and Bugle is a big one for the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, as well as many of the other top-line magazines. And now with the digital side of it, we've kind of went in that direction, and back in 2003, Toby jumped on board, and we've rode one heck of a wave, and so that's my lifestyle, and that's about it. Just count myself very fortunate.
The one thing I can say is, after I met you a few years ago, I had heard about you beforehand, heard the name, and then met you, 4 or 5 years ago. But anybody I talk to that's been in the industry for any amount of time knows who you guys are. Knows you. And so I'm going to introduce the other two real quick, then I want you to kind of tell the story of how we met.
Yes.
But so, yeah, like Ken was just saying, we have Toby Shaw here with us. Goes by a few names. We like Shawshank. That's kind of what we refer to him as. But introduce yourself, Toby, and what you do.
Sure. Obviously, my name's Toby Shaw, and back, like Ken said, in 2003, he came to me and said, "Hey, I'm starting my own company, and I think you need to come work with me." So, we've been together that many years now, and identical to Ken, I grew up with a dad that had a passion for hunting, and he took me, even as a kid, I can remember sleeping in the blind next to Dad and waking up, and it would be dark and it'd be time to go, or watching him shoot a deer as a 8, 9-year-old, 10-year-old kid or whatever. And so that passion grew from him. That was passed down to me, and I passed it down to my kids, and it's such a great blessing to be in this industry where you get to hang out with good people such as you guys at the Hush crew here, and just have fun doing what we're supposed to be doing, out chasing around the countryside and chasing around these critters and just enjoying life.
I love it. Yeah, we'll dive into this later, but one of the things I want to say is you guys have been doing this turkey camp for how many years?
96 was the first year.
96. For over 20 years you guys have been doing this, and these guys kill some birds. We're already tagged out. We each had 2 tags. Me, my son Gage is here with us. Logie's here. And this is day number 3, so we've only really hunted 2.5 days, and we've killed 7 birds. Toby killed one this morning as well. And you guys have done this like killing birds every day for 20-plus years. There's a 2-week window you guys come and do this. You guys have seen hundreds of birds get killed, is what I'm trying to say. And the excitement on these two, this whole camp, the excitement that they still have after every bird tells me how passionate you guys are about turkey hunting. I think that's really, really special. Anyway, so we have Casey Byers with us as well.
So I am Casey. I am the son of Ken, and grew up in Michigan. And obviously, I grew up in a hunting household and remember hunting with Dad in the tree stand when I was 8, 9, 10, baiting in Michigan and hauling sugar beets back and all that, and killed my first deer at 12. And Dad was right behind me with a big old VCR camcorder with Autumn beside him in a tree stand in the UP. And, you know, it's been ever since then, just hunting and fishing and hunting turkeys and all that stuff. And then about 5 years ago, moved out to Idaho, and that's really, I love it. I love it. So I've been a resident in Idaho from a hunting perspective for 4 years, and I've been able to kill 3 elk and 2 wolves and a bear during this time.
Wow.
So it's been an awesome ride so far in Idaho. But this year, you know, I haven't been in South Dakota for about 12 years, and yesterday we slammed a tom with Autumn, and it was an awesome stalk. It was so fun. It was just Dad, me, and Nate, our camera guy, and it was those times are really precious. And I'm sure you guys as listeners have, you know, family and traditions and hunting camp, and that stuff is so important, and just don't take that for granted.
Yeah. So Autumn is Ken's daughter and Casey's sister, obviously, and she's been at camp both times I've been here. She's been coming out here for how long? Since she was a kid?
Yeah, pretty much. Yep. When she got out of college, she joined the team with Tobe and I, and has been part of the
works with
guiding.
you, right?
And, yep.
So, Casey, I wanted to ask you real quick, because this kind of plays into the story I really want Ken to tell, is how did you come across our YouTube channel?
I'm just researching elk hunting, do-it-yourself public land elk hunting. So you weren't the only, you know, born and raised.
Yep.
All the channels that probably everybody that's listening to this knows. But you know, just Dad, and with his business, I just really started thinking about the business opportunity of that, and said, Dad, you really need to pay attention to this, like the passion, the community that's in that channel. You know, I'd read your comments, and you guys would be on a long, you know, let's say a archery elk hunt. It's like an 8-day hunt, and you're not killing stuff. And then that 8th day, somebody kills something, and it's just like everybody's there, right there with you, cheering along. And that's something that's totally unique. That's, I would say, is it was revolutionary in the hunting industry. You know, the hunting industry as a whole are older people, or middle aged, and that aspect of it was totally new and revolutionary. So I said, Dad, you need to pay attention. So he started doing that.
Yeah. So, I would ask Ken to tell a story. So it was probably 5 or 6 years ago, our good buddy who's sitting right behind me, Mr. Kevin Wilkerson, formerly with Weatherby, just called me up and said, hey, do you mind if I leave my pickup at your house for a week or so? My buddy's coming from Michigan. He's going to pick me up and we're going elk hunting. I'm like, yeah, no problem, dude. We have plenty of space. So Kevin rolls in, and then this is when I meet Ken. And you told me, like, what Casey introduced me to the channel. Anyway, tell the story.
Yeah, so it was just one of those things that we're tooling along, living our life, and my son says, hey, have you ever heard of the Hushins? And I'm like, Hushin what? Like, Hushin, does that sound, I'm not quite sure. Is that on our side or the wrong side? But so a month goes by, Casey, literally, and he says, hey, did you check out the Hushins on the YouTube? And I'm like, no, I didn't. I've been busy. But he said, just stop what you're doing on Saturday morning and turn them on. So I did, and I watched the first episode, and I think that it was maybe your Colorado semi-live mule deer rifle hunt.
Uh-huh.
And then I watched the second one. That's the first one I'm watching. I'm like, because I'm a little bit long in the tooth, so I'm like, I've seen plenty of, whether it's the Outdoor Channel or whatever it might
plenty
be.
Of hunting
so
content.
I'm looking at this for kind of like YouTube. Okay, yeah. So then I watched the second one. And Casey, I kid you not, by the third one, it was like a transformation of every other hunting videos or shows that I watched. It left you wanting more versus what happened at the Hush.
Yeah.
And watching you guys in front of the camera, communicating with your fans, literally you felt like you were part of it. And I think my son Casey touched on it, the community, what that means. And at that point, I just said, I got it.
Yeah.
I got it. And so we've been kind of neck deep, and that was the start. And to finally get to meet you at your house and then at the Western Expo, a time or two, that's kind of how it was. It was like I literally had to be prodded into it.
Well, no, I don't think that, that's no fault of anybody's. It's just what we were raised on, right? When I grew up watching everything I could on the Outdoor Channel or the Sportsman's Channel, and I absolutely loved it. And then when, years later, we decided to try to this thing on YouTube, it was hard to like break into the industry because that was just how the industry was created, and that's what the industry knew for so long was, you had TV and then you had print, and you had, what have you, and then this digital thing comes along, and it's like, what is this all about, And I think for me, I think that I love YouTube because it really gives anybody a platform that wants to try. If you have a great idea before YouTube, it was, where would you go? Like, what outlet would you go if you had a great idea for a TV show? You would have to go and convince Sportsman's Channel to sell you a time slot, which costs upwards of $250,000. And then to hopefully get that money back, you have to go and convince sponsors to pay you for something you've actually never done yet or have created yet. And so I even looked into it right after I was married because my brother asked me one day, he goes, if you could do anything like for a job, what would you do? And I'm like, start a landscape business? He goes, no, honestly, like, what would you do? I'm like, I'd probably do something in the hunting industry if I could. Like, I'd love a TV show. He's like, we'll figure out how to do it. So I looked into it. And it was shortly after YouTube came along, and he proposed that same question to me. He was like, if you could do anything, what would you do? I was like, hunting industry. He's like, why don't you start a YouTube channel? I'm like, oh, man, no one watches hunting on YouTube. It's just weird cat videos. Anyway, long story short, I love the fact that if anybody has an idea and are passionate about it and work hard, they could really be successful at it and get their content out there to everybody, which I think is super cool.
Yeah.
And so now you guys have started your own YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's kind of just a crazy thing how things work out, but I think it's for a reason. But back in the late 90s, we started elk hunting, and we went to Idaho, we did a DIY, we'd bring some folks from the industry, they'd experience elk hunting for the first time, and it was just that passion, that drive to what's on the other side of that mountain. It just would drive you to, how can we go further than what most people do to where we can actually find good quality hunting and whatever. And we started doing that, and that just really put a fire in our bellies. And I can remember, like, the first time Casey went out there, and he's like, Dad, I want to go just do a solo hunt by myself. And I'm like, are you crazy? I was like, how old were you, Casey?
I think I was 17.
Yeah, 17. I'm like, hey, we do some spike camping, but we always are doing it with somebody. And he's like, no, I want to do it by myself. And I'm like,
that was before GPS. I mean, that was crazy. I had a compass and a plat map.
Yeah. So how long? I'm not to date you, but how long ago was this? How old are you now?
I'm 39, so 22 years ago.
22 years ago, yeah. So before Onyx, before all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I literally looked at him like he's out of his head, but I didn't want to damper his enthusiasm. So I'm like, here's a can of bear mace.
Yeah.
I got two things. I said, take a can of bear mace, and don't tell your mom I let you do this.
I'm just going to tell you right now, she knows because she's standing behind you right now. Yeah, the cat's out of the bag.
Well, he survived, so it's okay.
So literally, I mean, at that time, and we killed some elk. We had, and 2 days later, here he comes into camp with antlers over his shoulders.
I'm gonna tell you, that was the coolest sight because we're sitting around the campfire, and we're eating and just kind of like relaxing for the day, and it was like out of the ambiance of the fire, here comes Casey with a rack, and he's all wore out.
Yeah.
And we are just going, holy cow, he pulled it off. And it was probably one of the coolest, I'll just say, it was almost like a slow motion video where he just kind of just started walking towards the fire.
It's because I was going really slow.
Because he was wore out. But we all just stood there with our mouth hanging open, and it was just nothing but rejoice. But it was one of the coolest scenes that I can remember of Casey as a kid going, he went and pulled that off by himself.
What's wild about that story is the reason that happened, you remember it that way, is because his first name's Casey. And with a name like that, only thing you ever do is epic, right?
I mean, I watched you fan today. It was epic.
Yeah, my fanning today, pretty much like walking in after a solo elk hunt with antlers on your back. So your YouTube channel it's Hooked Hunting.
Yep.
If you guys haven't heard of Hooked Hunting, go and check it out. I'll leave a description in the box if you're watching this on YouTube. But they have some pretty spectacular videos out on YouTube. And you guys have only been doing YouTube for, a couple years now?
Yep, that's correct. And, I mean, it's kind of our idea was because we enjoy the outdoors at such a high level and our passion, we want to share it.
Yeah.
And should we hone some of our skills? And that's why sharing camp with you guys, you and Logan and the team, is just, it's so important to us. I mean, we just feel like we're just pinching ourselves, in honesty, Casey. That's the reality.
Well, we appreciate the invite to come back.
Yeah, well,
it might not happen next year.
Yeah. If Logan doesn't shape up, like
they do tag out pretty quickly, I'm not going to lie. They are quick on the trigger.
Yes, we are.
But our goal is simple that way. Is we want to just share our passion, and in doing so, hopefully it helps people to take that step. We love Western big game. Yeah. I mean, we just do. Yes, we killed Michigan whitetail. We've killed the rabbits. We've done the squirrels. And that's all good. It's all a great balance. We fish as much as we hunt.
Yeah.
But the Western big game, man, that's a heart stopper for us. It really is. And so we've been super, super fortunate to do that in Idaho for a long, long time. Then when the wolves got so bad, we kind of shifted our focus into Wyoming. And now it's the Montana, Wyoming, Idaho deal for us, depending on preference points and what we have going on. But that's kind of what started the idea of the YouTube channel, and to get people hooked on what we do.
I mean, we were in the field doing it, so let's film it, and we love it. So we're definitely when you look at some of the episodes in the past, you're like, whoa, that was kind of brutal there. Sorry, Nate and Connor. And it's not just their fault. It's all of ours. Like, we're all learning, and just even back to Dad, just to reiterate, just observing you guys, just kind of osmosis of like how you talk to the camera, engage the audience and stuff. Like, just little things like that. We've definitely improved. And then, like, I just can't wait that turkey that Autumn killed yesterday. It's going to be such a cool episode, and we took some of the things that we observed from you, and we did it on the hunt yesterday, and it's going to be pretty awesome footage.
I love it. Yeah, just going back to what I was talking about earlier with YouTube and why I love that platform so much, and to be honest, like, hopefully YouTube continues to allow us to play, because there are certain things that have happened in the last little while that kind of have restricted the way we like to show content. We used to be able to show all of our butchering, which I think is super important to the audience. We'd show how-tos like gutless method. I've met so many people that have went out on their first big game hunt and didn't know how to take care of the animal, and they literally had that video we did downloaded to their phone, so when they killed an elk or a deer, they could do it. Anyway, so YouTube's kind of taking some of that away. But what I do love about everyone having a voice is you can show exactly how you want to show it. There's no hoops you have to jump through. It doesn't have to be cut to 22 minutes like a TV show does. And you can really just express your passion for the outdoors the way you want to, and the way, that it hopefully would reach a large audience. And that's why I love the platform so much, just because you can do whatever you want, and you can try things out, and if it doesn't work, then go back to something that works. And it's forever changing. So the platform is awesome, and I hopefully continue to allow us to show,
Yeah, and I think one of the first things that I recognized with you and your group, Casey, and don't take this wrong, Logie, but I mean, I got a man crush on your brother.
Well,
I am the more handsome one for sure.
There's truth to that, because every time I'd come out of the back office for the first 6 months, he'd be like staring right at his computer screen. I'm like, what's he watching? And it's one of your videos. And I'd go back in my office shaking my head. Come back out 6 hours later, and he's still there staring at your videos.
Yeah, Shawshank was a late comer to the party.
Shawshank was late, huh?
Yeah.
But if you have a story to tell and you're passionate about it, you're going to succeed. As long as you just, have the attitude of like, I'm going to continually improve.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I think, too, is, a lot of people ask, I've been thinking about filming my hunts. What do you think? And to me, like, my response is, one of the coolest things I think is looking at my dad's old, like, photo album of just pictures of him hunting with his brother growing up in Arizona. And I thought, like, how cool is that your kids can look at that and hopefully find a passion through pictures? Well, now we have video. And so if you never even end up uploading your video to YouTube, but you have that video of you hunting, and then your kids come along and your grandkids come along, like, how cool is that? And that's what I tell people, like, how cool would that be that, maybe they'll find passion through watching your old videos. Yeah, and, absolutely. You can, YouTube could just be your hosting site. You're not trying to grow an audience, but you can host your videos there, and hopefully you'll have them forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Doing that's your modern day scrapbook or photo book that we used to have as kids, look through old pictures and stuff, and now it's just done digital format. It's just evolved into that, and that's basically what it is right now.
Yeah, and pretty much 99% of people have a really good camera in their pocket at all times, which is the cell phone.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm passionate about hunting and fishing just because, our why is to hopefully inspire other people to get out and do what we do, is part of it. And if that's through video or through social media, whatever it might be, and it can be negative at times if you allow it to, but it also the positivity always outweighs the negative stuff that goes on the internet for sure.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to see you guys. You've come a long ways, Ken, from not even knowing.
No,
you worked in the old school industry of hunting for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And you still do, but you see a need for something in the digital space, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, people are consuming content differently.
Yeah.
They just are, like it or not. And what YouTube does, and what I think is, it keeps it real.
Yeah.
It really keeps it real. It keeps it genuine, in a large part. And you guys especially, you're an example of that. And when you're on the Outdoor Channel or the others, there's so much, I'll just say B-roll. But then when you're on the backside of it, it can get a little bit, a little different.
Yeah.
And so when you're watching the Hushin, and when I got exposed to it for the first time, that's what was one of the things that just drew me into it, is that, hey, this is real. This is not phony. This is not fake. And I think that's what really makes it, people engage and makes it attracting.
Yeah.
Well, the proof's in the pudding, And last year I had the privilege of taking them out and getting some turkeys, and then this year we've just spent 3 days together, 2.5 days together, and it's like, these guys are genuine human beings. What you see them portraying in a video is what they actually are like in real life, cutting it up, having a good time, enjoying what they do, and great hunters to boot. So they are genuine people, and that's what really makes it important. When you watch other shows, you just wonder in the back of the head, what are they really like when the off scenes, when the camera's not rolling? And these guys are exactly like you see, on the video, and that's
100%.
To me, that's really that's where the rubber meets the road.
Well, thank you. That means a lot to us. We've always said, we've always had this theory, if we just show, let me take a step back. There's things on the internet, maybe not even as hunting channels, but there's things on YouTube that do really well. They're different niches, whatever it might be. A lot of times these people are really just playing a character, right, on YouTube. And it does well, and people love it, and that's fine. But we've always said, if we just show it how it really is, be who we really are, then we never have to be anything but that. And that's why we kind of show, that's why we always said, let's show a hunt how it really happens. Mm-hmm. There's no storyline, basically. We're going to have an opener, we're going to have an ender, and let's show everything in between, because more people can relate to that, because that's how a real hunt goes. Mm-hmm. It's not this crazy B-roll shot at the first, and then, me sitting in the sand shooting a buck or calling a bull in, because that happens very little. But that's what's the great thing about YouTube, is you can literally choose how you showcase a hunt. Like, this is a 3-4 day hunt. We might have 3 or 4 videos out of it, compared to a TV show would only have 22 minutes to try to tell that story of everything that happened in 4 days. And there's a lot that happens. And so I just really like the idea of showing exactly how it happens. We've had multiple people tell us at expos or whatever, hey man, I experienced the same thing you did, where you shot at that deer and you missed him. I had the same thing happen to me. I was really down, or whatever it might be. I'm like, yeah man, that's hunting. We all are going to go through that. If we hunt long enough, you're going to make some bad shots, you're going to make some poor decisions, but you just got to learn from it and move on, and hopefully people are getting something out of it.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll tell you, the joy that I get out of it is just simply passing the torch to the next generation.
Yeah.
And to watch Casey do what he does, and my daughter Autumn, and when you have a child that works for you day in and day out, if you will, or works with you, I mean, it's hard to get any better than that. So that's a blessing every day. And for Casey to come back after 12 years of not being in South Dakota and being in camp and getting to hunt with his sister, it's nothing short of amazing. And have my wife here doing some cooking and helping around camp, and the little granddaughter.
We have 3 generations of buyers here at camp. If we throw Joe in, that could be 4 generations, right?
And kind of to what you were saying, Casey, is the people that we've gotten to meet through the years, it's literally unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, if you take any sort of of whether it's golf or whatever it might be, passion that you're involved in. Hunting, just the overall group of people who are in it are people that are, whether it's wholesome family activity or whatever that is, it is a very, very, overall very positive experience.
For sure. You said this to me last year, that you just really enjoy spending time with good people. And that's what you like. We're pretty much the only ones in camp so far this year. We were like the first ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
But last year when we got here, it was kind of like in between. So I got to meet a lot of the guys that were going home, and then some new guys coming back. Like that's definitely what you guys have created with this turkey camp. It's just really good people in the hunting industry, just wanting to come out and have a good time. And you guys have done a phenomenal job with this thing.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that, but it's all about the people.
Yeah.
And it's so wonderful to work with companies and brands that are pushing the envelope with technology and bringing out new products all the time. And it's our privilege to get a chance to be maybe on the front side of seeing how some of that equipment works in the field. And that's kind of what we try to do here.
So I'm going to pick your guys' brain. We talked a little bit about YouTube, but let's go to talk about real time right now. So this is the second year I've been invited out to turkey camp. I love turkey hunting. Let me start it out that way. I grew up in Idaho. We didn't have a lot of access to hunt turkeys around where we lived. Like I don't remember seeing turkeys when I was a kid around Pocatello. We are getting turkeys there now, and for the last 10 years, they're really doing well. I get my butt kicked every year turkey hunting in Idaho, trying to do it. But my goal, and I've had this goal the last 3 years, is to call in a tom and shoot it for myself on public land. So loving turkey hunting and not being the best at it, I've gone some other places, gone out with, we've hunted with the hunting public before in Wisconsin a few years ago. I took Gage up north in northern Idaho last year. There were a ton of turkeys, and we had some success. But what makes this place so dang special? Like, why do we kill so many dang birds? I know you guys are amazing, and that's what I want to talk through. Like,
well, that's part of it.
Well,
that's just
I
a
think
little
it's
sliver.
just the numbers and the topography.
Yeah.
If you can use the topography to your advantage. But
There's
I better
truly-
let Dad and Toby answer that, because
Well,
you
there's-
guys have been doing this way longer.
there's just truly a lot of, this is a game-rich environment. Fortunately, South Dakota is one of those areas that just has a lot of, it's a game-rich environment, and not that tremendous amount of hunters, although tags are hard to get. But there's still, they do a nice job of managing it and keeping the tag numbers and the game animals at a high quality. So I think and then being able to use the lay of land to get on to kill the birds is another great reason, like Casey was just saying. And they're responsive to what we do. So
Yeah, if you like mule deer spot and stalk, like this is that, but like way quicker action.
Yeah, it's that, but on
Boom,
crack.
boom, boom, boom. Yeah,
So you guys grew up in Michigan. You guys hunted birds there, right?
yeah.
What were your tactics early on hunting turkeys in Michigan?
Yeah, I mean, it's very classic, if you could say that, where whether you're sitting in a pop-up blind on the edge of a field with your decoys out or you're leaned up against a tree kind of thing, there's a little more sitting, and, that just I've always had trouble with that.
Yeah.
Sitting still. Toby was probably better than me at the Michigan thing.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's what was so appealing to me in South Dakota. But Toby, if you wanted to speak on your Michigan.
Well, I grew up, just like Ken said, in edge of fields, waiting, figuring it out, doing a ton of scouting, knowing where those birds wanted to be before, and beating them to that spot. And that was the ticket. The more scouting as I did as a kid, the more successful I was, and then I was able to take other people out. And I think that was, at 16 years old, I'd be getting up at 5 a.m. to drive around looking for birds before I went to school. Well, not many kids my age were doing that.
Yeah.
So that gave us a leaps and bounds over everybody else as a young kid. And then when you come out here, then you got that background. But then it's like, wait a minute, I don't have to sit still for them. I can see them. Let's go get them.
I can actually do the opposite move.
Right. And that's where the appeal is. Now you go back home, and it's, people ask me all the time, well, how do you hunt here after you're hunting out there? And I'm like, it's a mindset. It's like, okay, I go back to my camp, and I'm like, yeah, this is what we do, and here's the quality of birds we have, and this is what I'm looking for. And so it's just a mindset that you have. But yeah, when you come out here and come out to the West and anything, it's totally different.
Well, now you guys speak through it, and I start thinking about this. I'm a victim of just watching turkey shows, or growing up watching turkey shows and watching how they did it. And I try that in Idaho, and it doesn't work that well. But we have, like where I hunt turkeys is very similar to out here. The topography, being able, what I love about this camp is that we use our binoculars a whole lot. I'm a big binos guy. I like to glass things up before I make a move. That's how I hunt all my animals. And that's definitely the case out here in South Dakota with the turkeys.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that, and I forget if I think Casey started at first on the lay of the land and how you can use it and so forth. But the fact of the matter is, when you can engage in seeing the critter and then try to make your stock and then close the deal, and out here in South Dakota, you don't have to wait for action. You can make it. And that's what was so appealing to us. And there were some folks that would come out from the Midwest and use their tactics, and they'd be looking at our kind of us butchering up birds and going, what the world? You guys are professionals. They've said that. And they're like, no. We are a long ways from professionals.
I would put you guys in that professional category.
But it was simply that we didn't just lean up against a tree and hit the call and think that it's all going to come your way. It's like, no, you pretty much. So we, for years, we'd come out in like 36 turkeys in a camp. Was kind of the norm when it first started. Uh-huh. Everybody could kill 2 birds, and we'd bring in a group for 3 days, and then they would exit out in another group, kind of like what you were saying earlier, where you got in a fit in the middle. Well, I say all that to say, as things played out, we're like, wow, we can literally like sneak and stalk and come over the hill and shoot them up, and we had so much fun. And then some cat from Iowa showed me how to fan them. And so Ralph and Vicky, who's had a long time TV people, solid, great folks, said, now listen, I'm going to show you something, but don't tell anybody. So
you're betraying him.
We're not telling anybody right now, right?
Yeah, so I'm fixing to not tell anybody. But what he did is he said, hey, we just came from Iowa. We shot turkeys, so we got some fresh fans, and I'm going to go show you something. And we tried it, and not only did it work, but you literally had turkey tracks on your face. It was hand-to-hand combat immediately. And so I say all that to say we're like, okay, that's pretty good. We like that, and we did it for a couple years that way. And then we're like, well, why in the world can't we take a decoy, a tom decoy, put a natural fan on it, and then attach a camera to it? So now we can look through the little peek hole and also have a camera lens going through that peephole. And so we've been running, back in the day it was the Thunder Chicken by Flexstone.
Uh-huh.
And now recently they came out with the Thunder Reaper. Well, now it's just not even fair.
Yeah.
I mean, you throw the fan on that and you put your cell phone out that peephole and you got some action-packed excitement that I don't even know if there's through the years, we've had people who've killed turkeys everywhere. And they're out with us for a few days, and they're like, oh, my word. I've killed 50 turkeys and never had this much fun.
I haven't killed a whole lot of turkeys. I've killed turkeys multiple different ways. But what I can tell you is when we came out here last year, it was the very first morning. Toby had us out, and it was me and our good buddy Luke from Weatherby. And we both had tags in our pocket, and we got on a flock of birds. And some of the hens had spotted us, and they were moving away. And typically in Idaho, when that happens, I see them running. I'm like, okay, see that turkey next year, you know. They just run for miles. Anyway, so these birds started taking off, and I'm like, oh, you know, we got. And Toby whipped up the fan, started clucking. Is that a cluck? A yelp?
A yelping.
Yelping. And the toms stopped at the top of the hill. They were probably 150 yards out at this point. Tom stopped at the top of the hill, turned around, saw the fan. And then I didn't understand at the time because you hadn't explained this to me, but it was like the Tom saw the fan and then they had to look at each other and made a decision, a joint decision. And it's like getting in a fight, right? If you're by yourself, what's the likelihood of if somebody yells at you, you're going to go fight them? Probably pretty low. But if you have a group of buddies with you that's willing to go fight, you're probably going to go fight. Yep. And that's what these turkeys did. They like convinced each other like, if you go, I'll go. If you're going, I'm going.
Right. They rolled up their sleeve and got their turkey muscle going on.
Turkey muscle, that's what you guys call it. Yeah. And these birds literally turned around and ran back to us like they were going to come stomp Toby out. And they came into about 10 yards before we shot them. And it was the most incredible thing I'd ever seen. And it happened multiple times after that, and it's happened multiple times this year already.
Yeah, I had to start cutting hard on those birds to get them to stop because, when they get sub 10 yards, there's that. All those BBs coming out of that shotgun is like not open. The pattern's not opened up, and if you jerk that trigger at all, these birds are flying.
Do you guys think? So you guys started hunting out here 20 plus years ago, and were you using your old tactics at that time when you originally started hunting?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, and we hunted in the timber, big canyon country, and then one day we were just kind of cruising between finishing up hunting, coming back to dinner, and it was kind of close to fly up time, and we're looking out, and I'm like, holy mackerel, Dad. My father was with me, and I said, there's a flock of turkeys out in the middle of the prairie. And we're like, let's hunt that flock tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we hunted that flock, and we have forever since been hunting prairie gobblers, and again, because you can see them. Yeah. So it just gives so many more options. And don't get me wrong, we love going into the canyon country. Matter of fact, Toby's done that the last couple of years and had tremendous success. And even yesterday or 2 days ago, we were in some canyon country, and it's fun. It's all fun.
Oh yeah.
But that's when the tides turned.
Yep.
Is when we saw our first flock of turkeys out in the prairie. In of course, they're all creeks and ditches and rivers and where there's trees and cover. They need that, but then you can get after them, make a play, and have just so much more fun.
So do you think after you learned how to fan from Ralph and Vicky, and you guys have been doing that for years, do you think that is like the birds have wised up to it over the years, or do you think it still works as well today as it did the first day that Ralph showed you that?
Yeah, well, 800 birds later. Our and again, it's not because we're that great of hunters. It's not.
Yeah.
But we just happen to be able to put ourselves in the right spot,
right,
and make it happen. But I just say that
that might mean you're a great hunter.
He doesn't want to take it, but that's just all things are pointing to that, right? You can just accept it, Ken.
Yeah. No, but it works as good if the mood's right. I mean, they are coming. And Uncle Joe Byers, he's a freelance outdoor writer, been doing it forever, mid-70s. He came out and his hunt lasted 1 hour.
1 hour.
I mean, we got attacked by 2 old birds that just couldn't take it.
Yeah.
They're like, no, you're not playing in my turf. We're gonna come over there. We're gonna kick you out of the sandbox, and you're not gonna like us anymore. Well, 1 shot later, with a 2 ounce of number 5s. It was over. Yep, and they had learned they messed with the wrong turkey fan.
And we can say that it doesn't work every time.
Nope.
Obviously, it has to be in the right situation for sure. It's just like any other type of hunting. Like calling elk, you can't use the same call every time and think it's going to work. Like it doesn't work every time. But when the mood's right, dude, it's phenomenal.
It is one of the most exciting things that you have, and I get truly pumped up and excited. And I can remember the very first turkey that I fanned in. I was actually with Ken's dad and a good friend of ours, Mr. Hack, who's passed away since then. But we were out, and it was the last few days of the hunt, so nobody was with us, and it was just us 3. And we had this flock across this canyon, and those guys goes, I'm not going over there. They go, you go over there and kill them. I'm like, okay. So I jumped down, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to get these birds. But I went down the canyon and come up. When I popped up, I just happened to come up in the exact spot, and they were like 80 yards away. And I had a fan, no decoy, just a fan. I throw it on get it out of my pack, and I whip it up, and I'm like, kind of like moving it around, and can't really see the birds because I wasn't smart enough to cut out any holes to peek through to look through it, And I'm like, what do I do now? I'm just kind of moving around, and I can't see anything. I said, well, I better look. So I just kind of peek around the fan, and all I could see was a redhead running straight at me at 10 yards. I mean, I dropped that fan, and I pulled the shotgun up. I was laying on a cut bank, so I could have the shotgun laying next to me, and I picked it up, and I rolled that bird backwards, and all I could hear was those old timers across that canyon hooping and hollering and screaming. So that was my first real time that a fan worked. But I've had, a ton of opportunity, or a ton of times, as you've been with me, Casey, noticing that it doesn't work all that well. We've had actually last night, we threw out the calls, we threw out the decoys, and we just old school and tried to ambush them at the roost last night. So it's just a matter of when you talk about does it work, when it works, of understanding, reading the bird to go, okay. It's like hearing an elk and knowing what they're going to do is what they like. Give them what they like. If they don't like it, give them something else.
Yep. Yeah, the more I think about it, especially this trip, every bird we've killed has been when two birds come in, right? It's that turkey muscle we talk about.
Right.
So the first morning, we spotted a flock of turkeys from the road, got out, make a plan on them. Well, they had crossed the river by the time we got to where they were at, and so they saw us, and they boogered up the hill. And these guys have been doing this long enough that they know what these birds are going to do. And Toby goes, well, let's just sit down and give them like 10, 15 minutes. Because what they'll do is they'll go up on top of that thing, start feeling calm, start feeding. If we get too excited, we'll start walking up there, and there'll be a hen that's still on top and pop its head up and see us, and it'll be over. So we sat there, chilled out for 10, 15 minutes, worked our way over there. They had moved again, and then we got right on top of them. And they were passive birds, I would say. But we showed them the fan long enough that it turned their hens around, and the hens came walking by us, and then the two male birds came in, 30 yards.
30 yards, and now and they were in the back of the truck 30 seconds later.
30 seconds later. Yeah, but there's definitely a thing of like every bird we've killed, so I believe, has been a double almost.
Pretty much.
Pretty much, right?
Yep. Autumn's was a single, but that was the only male bird.
And he didn't come into the fan. We went to him.
Yep.
Yeah. I think it's an important lesson no matter what type of hunting you're doing. If your plan A doesn't work, you always have to go to plan B, because these guys aren't just out here trying to fan birds, and if it doesn't work, they're just like, well, on to the next one to try to fan. You guys figure out a way to kill those birds, and you have to use multiple different techniques to do that, and I think that's important with anything. Like if you're an elk hunter and the only thing you want to do is to call, that's cool, and I understand that's the experience you're looking for, but if you're really trying to kill an elk, you've got to be adapted to the situation. If they're not coming in on calls, you got to go to the next plan, which might be sit in a water hole, might be a spot and stock.
Right.
But that's pretty much with any animal you hunt, is you just got to be able to willing to change the plan a little bit.
Yeah, for us it was how to be nimble, and then how to be successful at the highest level for the folks that are out hunting with us, to show them a good time.
Yeah.
And have success in the field. And that's kind of been the way we structured this whole program, and a lot of times, I mean, these are people within the industries, so we're using their products.
Yeah.
While we're doing this. So it's such a win-win.
Yeah. It's been such a fun trip. I wish I had 2 more tags in my pocket. But so the joke has been with me and Toby, like, hey, Toby, I really want to try to call you a bird in this year. And Toby doesn't want to pick up a gun because he wants everyone to kill a bird first. Ken's the same way. So finally, Logan was the last one in our group to tag out, and Toby has two tags in his pocket. And this morning, him and Logan both doubled up. And Toby didn't take his stupid gun because he wanted Logan to kill a bird first, which he did, and then passed the gun to Toby, and Toby shot the bird. Anyway, so I was like, okay, finally, I think this is my time to, call Toby out and make him allow me to do something, either run the fan or the call. So he got out, we spotted the tom, and we're going to have Keith, our guide, or driver, shoot a bird, because he has 2 tags as well. So Toby jumped out to open the gate, and I asked the guys, I go, what do you guys think Toby's going to give up first, the calls or the fan? And they're like, you might get a fan. You're not getting a call. So Toby finally handed the fan over to me, and it didn't go so well. But I tried hard.
And you looked good doing it.
Did I look good doing it?
Oh, man. You were like a ninja.
Here's my problem.
Slipping through the timber, trying to get there.
See, I'm going to go try to do this with Ken later, is to run the fan for him. I can see where my issue is going to be. I'm definitely, my eyes are, my greatest feature when it comes to hunting. I have really good eyes. And so these fans, they cut a hole big enough for a GoPro, and just above that's a slot that you could really just see out of one eye, right? You can't put both your eyes through that, right? No. So that's my problem, is when I was doing that and I was walking up the hill going slow and waving that thing back like a big old Tom would, because I felt like a big old Tom at the time. I couldn't see everything I wanted to see out of the hole. So I don't know if you could see this from behind. I was holding it down a little bit so I could see over the top of it.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
That's not going to work?
No.
Okay, that might be my issue.
You're better to look under it than over it.
Okay. Yeah. I'm learning. I'm still learning. I just wanted to see all the landscape, And I turned to Logan. I go, think this will work? And he's like, yeah, Toms wear hats.
But just take your time and go slow and pick the terrain apart as you do it. That's the biggest thing I could recommend, is don't get in a hurry to screw it up. Just take your time and really pick the terrain apart, and as you're scanning, looking, because the next step there could all be in your sight,
Yeah. I have a question. We just put this up on our YouTube community tab as a poll. If you're a turkey hunter, you guys can answer as you will. What is your favorite call? Is it a diaphragm call? Is it a box call? Or is it a slate call? We'll start with you, Ken.
Boy, oh boy. I mean, that is it's a great question, Casey, and it is situational for sure, because you can hardly ever beat just a classic box call.
Yeah.
That classic yelp or cut that you can do on a box call is a winner chicken dinner just about every time. But when you get yourself where you need to be running that fan and doing some other things, then the doggone diaphragm. Yeah, you can't go without it at that point. So that's the best answer I could give you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Situational. But if you were to have your hands free and you're really just trying to make that the best noise you possibly can, you're thinking box call.
Yeah, the box call is the Widowmaker.
Okay.
Yeah, hands down.
You agree with that, Toby?
By far. Yeah, it's 100% situational, and if I could only have one call for the rest of my life, it would be a box call.
Box call.
Yeah, because it just it carries better, especially when it's windy country like this. It's more, and then you can soften it up when they get close, and you can, especially if you can get your hands free.
Yeah.
No doubt, but it's, yeah.
I think volume is a big thing when it comes to any type of calling for animals, that especially for elk. That's what I know the best is calling elk, And I think a lot of guys think they have to go out and make the perfect sound every time, and if they do, the elk will answer. I think an elk will answer if they can hear your bugle and it somewhat sounds like an elk. Mm-hmm. But the volume is by far the most important thing, I think, when you're calling elk, especially if you're trying to sound realistic, which you should be. Is elk are freaking loud. Mm-hmm. And for a human to try to be as loud as an elk is next to impossible, but the louder you can be, probably the better and more realistic that sound's going to be. And I've noticed that with the turkeys as well.
Yeah, well, turkey can make 28 different vocal sounds.
Oh, you're hitting me with those turkey stacks again.
It's one of those things that you can't, you really, if you find a note that he likes, then give him that note.
Yeah.
So you kind of just work through your sequence of what, is it a yelp, is it a cluck, is it cutting, what is he really liking? And then that's what you just give him more and more and more of.
Yeah. There's been a couple times where we had birds hammering, and you were originally started out with the box call because you hadn't fanned yet, and then you go to the fan, which you obviously can't use the box call while you're holding the fan, and so you're yelping with your diaphragm, and they wouldn't answer. So you actually had Logan hold the fan at one point, got your box call out, called, and that turkey responded instantly.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's just telling you they like that note a little bit better.
Yeah.
Than what you're giving them, and that's once they get in sight of the fan, and then that's where the diaphragm comes into really play, because then you can soft talk to them. And if you ever get close to turkeys, they're always talking to each other. It's soft. You got to get within their zone to hear it, and that's where that really helps. And if you just threw the fan up and didn't say a peep, in my opinion, that's a negative, because turkeys don't do that. They are always trying to talk to each other.
They're vocal.
They're vocal, and that's exactly right. So you just sit there and have to talk to them, and you get the reaction when you do it, and then you just keep working them.
Yeah, going back to me saying that the elk have to hear you before they can answer you, that works for the response. But just like with turkeys, when the elk get in close, you don't have to be nearly as loud. As long as they're in earshot, they can hear you. But yeah, it's just like cow elk. Cow elk are always talking to each other. But a lot of times it's not really loud. It's just, enough that they can hear each other at 60 yards apart. And so you might not hear anything, and then you get in on a herd, and you just cows talking all right and left. So what's yours, Casey?
Just the versatility of it is just the diaphragm call.
Diaphragm, yeah.
Yeah, but I do agree with everything said about the box call. The one thing about slate call, too, is purring is really easy to do, and it sounds super good on a slate call.
Slate call.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of at different ends of the spectrum, and I've brought this up, and I've had people disagree with me multiple times, argue with me, if you will. You guys grew up turkey hunting. I grew up elk hunting. And now we've both switched, and we do both now, right? Do you compare, would you say trying to call turkeys in is very comparable to trying to call elk in?
Ooh,
I would. There's a lot of comparisons.
Yeah.
Yeah, or correlation, yeah.
That's my stance on it, is people are like, it's not like elk hunting, you're hunting a 25-pound bird. I'm like, I get it. But the tactics are very similar, in my opinion. Coming from an elk background, moving into learning turkey stuff, I feel like the tactics are very similar. You guys agree?
Yeah, agreed. What Casey said is very, very true. I mean,
the one thing, though, we can't gobble. Elk, we're doing female and male noises.
That's true.
Yeah,
as a whole.
Hold on, back up the bus.
There's some people that can gobble.
I heard your dad try to gobble last year.
Yeah.
You remember this? When we forgot all the calls in the truck? I have video. He was making all turkey noises with his mouth.
Yeah.
And it didn't turn out well for us.
I don't know if it worked, but I was like, that's impressive, Ken.
Sorry, but I interrupted you, Dad. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean there's definitely some gobble calls out there commercially, and then there's some guys that's pretty talented with a diaphragm call that can make a gobble sound. And to your point, Casey, regarding your sounds don't have to always be perfect. Well, they don't in this game either.
Yeah.
When they're in the mood and you got them going, boy, they can tolerate a whole lot of imperfection.
Oh, yeah.
And they still cooperate. So with that, though, I think that is what is so addicting to the things regarding the comparison to turkey and elk, is the fact that you are engaging with that wild animal.
Sorry if you guys are hearing a little bit of wind noise. We're keeping it natural. We're outside in the turkey woods just talking. Yeah, I would say, like, going back to tactics, though, like, just as much as I've learned from you guys in the last couple of years, if you're not in that zone, we call it their bedroom, right? Like an elk. If you don't get into his bedroom, a lot of times he's not going to call. He might respond to you multiple times, but sometimes you just have to break that, like, 100 yards, 80 yards, and if you can get into that distance and you start calling, most likely that bull's going to come into you. It's very similar to what I've seen with turkeys as well. Do you agree with that, Tobe?
Oh, absolutely. It's kind of like the elk doesn't really want to leave those cows.
Yeah.
But when you get close enough, he's going to come pick you up. And
Yep.
when you get in close enough to those toms, they realize they're going to have to fight. At some point, whether you pop up over a bank or you start crawling to him across the prairie, whatever it is, you put the pressure on him. At some point, there's a snap. He's going to crack. And it's either he's going to run away or he's going to run to you. And typically, if the hens tolerate you, then he's not going anywhere. You can literally crawl right into the flock. And that's exactly right. You have to be in that zone, if you will, to make them uncomfortable to come. And same as elk hunting. You got to be there where it makes it happen.
Yeah. We're running just at about 50 minutes now. I hate to close this thing down because I've enjoyed talking to you. But guess what? We have turkeys to kill.
Amen. And
So-
I get to watch you work your magic.
I don't know if you'd call it magic, but we're gonna work something. That's for sure. So, guys, like I said before, give us a closing statement about YouTube, about hunting, about anything you want to say. Anything you guys want to plug. Obviously, go and check out Hooked Hunting on YouTube. I've watched multiple of their videos. They have some of the best turkey stuff I've ever seen. The video you guys did last year is absolutely exceptional. And if you go and watch their videos, it's going to help you understand exactly what they're talking about, like working the fan and all that. But what's your closing statement here, Ken Byers?
Well, I mean, simply put, we feel privileged to be all about this. It's our passion, so it's what we do. It isn't phony. It's real and genuine. In this past fall, we were extremely blessed. Talking about the videos on Hooked Hunting is we were out with our good friend who you mentioned, Kevin Wilkerson, and he drew a very special tag in Idaho, and we were up there trying to get him on a big bull, and we were about to put the hammer down on a big bull, and two wolves came out, and I don't want to spoil it, be the spoiler, but the footage that we were able to capture in the wild was phenomenal. And Casey happened to have two tags in his pocket, so that's the kind of stuff that really makes our world go round. Is be out in God's creation, enjoy it, be a part of it, and experience, and we hope that people enjoy it.
I love it.
Sure.
It's a really good way to go about creating content, is just create stuff that you're passionate about, because if it's hunting or whatever, somebody else is very passionate about the same thing out there.
Well, to me, it's a blessing to be in this industry and do what we do and be able to hunt with good people, whether it's their first time ever out, and we've taken a ton of people that they've never hunted before, or we've taken guys like you who have killed everything under the sun. But I would be without remiss to say, the true blessing for me is to having a wife back home that is supportive of this, and here I'm for 2 weeks gone, and sometimes we're out in the middle of nowhere. It's hard to get communication and this and that, and her patience and whatnot, and her support is I couldn't do this without that. But so to me, it's a whole, I'll say, encompassing big thing. It's just being able to do what we do, and truly blessed, and then have a blessing of a wife back home that's supportive of that.
Yeah, I can agree with that more. Having support at home is a big thing. I make the joke all the time, like, people are like, you hunt for a living, how's that? And I'm like, well, it's easier to explain to my wife that I've got to go hunting because sorry, babe, I've got to go to work. But it really, like, without her support, none of Hush would have ever been possible. She believed in it at an early stage when it was just an idea, and she supported it. And, you know, we have 4 kids at home that require a lot. I've realized here in the last few years, kids require a lot when they become teenagers. And she takes care of all that, and I'm gone a lot. But, yeah, I would definitely agree with that, Toby. The support at home is very, very important.
So I would just say, you know, the hooked hunting thing has been just an awesome experience so far. We aren't where we ought to be, but we're better than we were yesterday, and we just keep improving slowly. Slowly. We're slow learners. But the one thing I'll just take away and just encourage you guys as listeners is to cherish your family and friends. Yesterday got to hunt with Autumn and Dad, as I mentioned, and this is the first time I've been here for 12 years, and thinking about my grandpa, because last time I was here in South Dakota, he was here and alive, and we were hunting together. That's not the case right now, so just being able to just cherish your family and friends. That time is so precious, and the older I get, the more I cherish those times, and was so glad to be able to do that yesterday. So that's what I would say.
I love it, man. If you guys are listening at home, that's very powerful words from Mr. Casey Byers. Cherish those moments you have, especially if you're young. I remember my parents trying to explain to me, like, life happens fast. Before you know it, you're going to be, you know, in this. And now I look back at my life, I'm like, holy crap, like, I'm a dad of 4. Like,
Yeah.
a couple of years, I'm going to be a grandpa, maybe, possibly, God willing. But if you guys haven't been able to tell in this short hour podcast, if you guys enjoy our videos and you enjoy our passion for hunting and fishing and all things outdoors, if you guys haven't been able to tell, these 3 gentlemen I'm sitting next to right now are the exact same as us. They're passionate about not just hunting and fishing, but doing it in a way with their friends and their family, getting kids involved. All those things that we have always talked about is what these guys are about. So if you love our stuff, you're going to love these guys' videos. And like I started this thing off, I just want to thank you guys for being exceptional human beings and being so nice and kind and just fun to be around. It's not always the case at every camp. This is one that I've cherished, and I've only been here for 2 years, and so hopefully Logan hasn't screwed it up for us that we can't come back next year.
Well, you're on the knife edge right now, just so you know, Case.
We're going to see how you do tonight with a fan.
It's all comes down to the
it's kinda
fanning.
like we're on the bubble, so it depends how you do tonight.
Logan, we're not coming back.
You're going to have to pull your weight.
You got to do something around here. Guys, again, thank you for listening to the podcast. We are trying to make this thing more consistent. As always, if you have any ideas for topics or guests, let us know in the comments. But thanks for listening to this week's podcast. And we're going to go out and shoot some more turkeys, I have a feeling.
Let's do it.
Amen.
Let's do her.
Okay, guys, as always, thank you for your support. We'll see you next time.